Let us continue to glean from Jacob's life. In the last chapter, Genesis 32, God changed his name to Israel. Okay, and Israel, according to the concordance, has many different meanings. One being he will rule. Jacob was to rule over his brother Esau, who he is on his way to meet at this particular time. Before meeting Esau, he had some reservations. So he splits his family so that if he was attacked by his brother and his company, then he wouldn't lose all of his family, servants, and prosperity. And we see that he comes in contact with an angel who he begins to wrestle with. That angel was God himself. He was the angel of Jehovah. He was the Lord himself. Jacob lost the encounter physically, but he certainly won a great spiritual victory, so much that his name was changed. The word Jacob actually meant con man, deceiver. Now his name is changed to Israel. It's translated to various things. Ruler being one, he will rule being one. God rules, striving with God, Prince of God. If you look in your concordance, there are many names. So now we're going to be moving on. Genesis 33, Jacob meets Esau. And I'm going to be reading from the New International Version. Jacob looked up, and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two female servants. He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. "Who are these with you?" he asked. Jacob answered, "They are the children God has graciously given your servant." Then the female servants and their children approached and bowed down. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, "What's the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met?" "To find favor in your eyes, my lord," he said. But Esau said, I barely, I'm sorry, but Esau said, "I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." "No, please," said Jacob. "If I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift for me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably. Please accept the present that was brought to you. For God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need." And because Jacob insisted, Esau accepted it. Then Esau said, "Let us be on our way. I'll accompany you." But Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are tender, and that I must care for the ewes and cows that are nursing their young. If they are driven hard just one day, all the animals will die. So let my Lord go on ahead of his servant while I move along slowly at the pace of the flocks and herds before me, and the pace of the children until I come to my Lord and Seir." Esau said, "Then let me leave some of my men with you." "But why do that?" Jacob asked. "Just let me find favor in the eyes of my Lord." So that day, Esau started on his way back to Seir. Jacob, however, went to Succoth, where he built a place for himself and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place is called Succoth. After Jacob came from Paddan Aram, he arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan and camped within sight of the city. For 100 pieces of silver, he bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, the plot of ground where he pitched his tent. There he set up an altar and called it El Elohi Israel. The last that we heard from Esau is that he planned to kill his brother Jacob as soon as his father died. He sees his brother coming along here in verse 1 with 400 men Okay, so what's the first thing that Jacob does? He divides the children. It's all about protecting his family. He splits up his children, their mothers, just fearful that he will lose everyone. Here in verse 3, he himself bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. This is his way of showing humility with Esau's behavior. Here in verse 4, we see that he throws his arms around his brother and kisses him.
Forgiveness and growth.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from it because even if you usually say time heals all wounds. Well, not all, but it just showed that wow, how much time apart had went and how much forgiveness, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it must have taken for at least Esau to get to that point, you know.
Right.
So that's what I took away from it, forgiveness and growth.
I just wanted to say just along the same lines how powerful forgiveness is because Esau came with 400 men. It's not even stating that Jacob had any men to protect. He just had women, children, and flock.
Right.
So that is so powerful.
I was wondering, did it kind of seem like Jacob had, even though they, met with the type of brotherly love, did Jacob still kind of have like a slight reserve, like, well, you could still go ahead and go, or something like that. I don't know. It just seemed like also, even though they cried and wept, did he seem like he still had a slight reserve, or is that why, or was his mission to go to um Succoth and settle a little bit outside or out of the way of where Esau and his people were settled in Seir?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just for me, and someone else can speak on it, I certainly kind of felt that when I was reading it. Like I can still see just a little reservation.
And I think it shows our human part too. We do
Right.
the same thing too. So if you did something wrong to someone or they did something wrong to you, and you
Yeah.
guys make up, you're still kind of tiptoeing around the situation because you're not 100% sure. It can go left, you're not sure. So yeah, I felt it too.
Yeah.
I even felt like his language, Jacob's language towards his brother, like my Lord, like, even how he addressed him was very submissive, very humble, kind
Yes.
of like, let me just be very humble to him and hopefully he won't do something, towards me and my family.
So we see here after they wept, here in verse 5, it says Esau looked up and saw the women and children. And he's like, who are these people with you? And Jacob explains that they are the children God is graciously giving your servant. They approach him, and everybody's humble at this point and bowing down. And it says, last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down.
Wanted to say, even the way that Jacob aligned his families, he was still showing favoritism in his family by putting Rachel and her children last. And so that seed was sown to even when the brothers got older, that favoritism was shown to Joseph and his brother, which brought division.
Yeah, I noticed that too, Pastor Brenda. Like he would send the livestock, the livestock and Leah's family, and then Rachel's family, just in case, like if something were to happen, you know, it would happen to the livestock, and then if it got towards his family, like Leah's family would feel the effects before Rachel and her family, and then got the him. So it did list it twice in the chapter, how the order was set up.
Could it also be because like his Joseph is his younger son, like his baby, that everybody else is older, and so he wanted to protect the youngest out of everybody else? What y'all think about that? I don't know. I'm just that was kind of on my mind when I was reading it.
Well, I just looked at it based on the scriptures because, when you go further, it talks about how he favored still favored
Mhm.
Joseph more, and the brothers saw it
Right.
and was being jealous of him the whole
Right.
time. Yeah. And how
Yeah.
even when he thought he was dead, how he wept the whole time, you
Mhm.
know, but like could never recover.
Right. 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 And
Yeah,
we
I was
know
gonna
he
say the
loved his
same
mama.
thing.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say the same thing, that Joseph was his favorite, you know. So that's
Mhm.
probably would be the youngest and the favorite. That's why him, Rachel. That's why his favorite people was last. Like if something gonna happen, something happens to the rest of y'all first, then I might
Wow.
get these out of Dodge, you know.
Wow.
Good morning, everybody. I
Good
think
morning.
his parents. I think you got to look at the parents. Jacob's parents, they were having favoritism too. You
In
look
what
back.
way?
Um, Isaac was in favor of Esau,
Mm.
because he was a hunter. He was out there
Mm.
hunting, and Jacob's mom was much in favor to him
Mm.
because he was in the kitchen cooking. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you kind of have to look back on how, I guess, they were raised.
I would like to add that we know for sure that the younger was to rule over the older. The younger twin was to rule over the older twin. And I think that was around chapter 26. Let's just take a look for
You
some people
talking
that
about
may.
doing the childbirth when
Yes, yes. Do you remember which chapter that was?
us probably like 4 chapters in the past, 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah, a couple of chapters back. Yeah, a couple of chapters back. Here we go. Yeah, chapter 25, Genesis 25, verse 23. Remember, because God says what he says, period. Okay, now he tells you A, you may know Z, but the in between, right? The process of going through, that's what people be tampering with, right? Yet and still, God has to do some course correcting, but his plan is always gonna prevail. But we know that the Lord said to their mother Rebecca at the time that the older will serve the younger. And so when I think about things that she was doing, the favoritism that she kind of showed, I just wonder if she always had this in the back of her mind, like trying to force it to happen. Even if there was deceit involved, she still had her hand on it in some type of a way. I don't know. What y'all think?
You read my mind. That's just so key, because I was just thinking about God. Will give us promises,
Uh-huh.
but a lot of times we try to make it happen. Like we gonna
Right.
help you out, God, and then we mess it up, and then we have to suffer the consequences
Uh-huh.
of tampering what God has already promised.
Exactly. And this is why I'm glad we take time to divide the word of truth, because we can go back and identify specific scriptures like this one that's pulled up right here on the screen of what God said. And remember, once his word goes out, it's not going to return to him empty. It's not going to return to him void. He's not a man that he should tell a lie. So no matter what, the older was going to serve the younger, right? It just so happens that um this is the course that was taken, right, for it to happen. And we can't, we can say, well, God could have stepped in and he could have changed it around, or he could have stopped Esau in the kitchen, or he could have stopped Jacob from telling a lie. He could have did all that, but he didn't. So when we think about our own lives, we have the promises, we have the biblical promises, yet guess what, we still have to go through a process of life. But let us not forget the promises, and let us not be upset or mad when God doesn't come in and change something around because of the choices that we made. No, the promises never change. Now, there may be some consequences to our actions because of the course that we decided to take, but God's promises still are going to remain the same.
Jacob, he didn't necessarily like apologize to Esau, right? So he
Mhm.
never really like apologized, but I guess he's trying to show a place of empathy or sympathy or whatnot. I was just thinking, I know we was around like family and stuff this weekend. Some people hadn't saw each other for a while or something like that. Even myself, I hadn't seen my certain family in a while, and I was just thinking, like, if there were like a family issue and things may have happened in the past, how like how does someone like if something happened in the family in the past or certain situations happen and it was like an uncomfortable feeling or just a feeling maybe not to even go around family or just like I hadn't seen this family in a while, is it something there, or like are they having a family gathering I don't know about, or either something like that. Like how do people, or how does one, like, even if they did ask someone to forgive them of things that they did in the past, how do someone move forward to work on like forgiving themselves? Because it seemed like Esau moved forward, but for us, it's like how do we like forgive ourselves and move forward, especially when it comes to dealing with family.
I just want to say I was just reading last night in James where it says, if there's any of you that's suffering, let him pray. If you're cheerful, let him sing songs. If there's anyone among you that is weak, let them call for the elders to pray over them. And it goes on down. It says to confess.
We want to read it with you.
Okay, James 5.
Okay. James 5, where we at?
13 on down.
Okay, I ain't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
But yeah, you're fine. And so, and then I'm just skipping down where it says to confess your trespasses one to another and pray you one for another that you may be healed, that you may recover in basically in your times of weakness. For the effectual fervent prayers of the righteous availing much. It's so important for us to confess, because a lot of times we hold on to things or we confess it to the wrong people. But we have to confess it to those that will pray, that the effectual prayers of the righteous that will pray for the person that's going through different situations. So I believe the healing process starts with the confession, with Esau running to Jacob. And my son said this earlier. He said, a lot of times we don't forgive because we always waiting on the other person to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it's keeping us in bondage. But Esau didn't wait on Jacob. He ran to Jacob. So I just wanted to throw that in there, because I believe that some of us are waiting. I'm just waiting on, I ain't forgiving until they come to me and say they sorry and da 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 da.
Yeah.
Forgive.